Hi, everybody. This is Mike and Peter. Mike is a lawyer. I am a psychologist and a therapist. And we talk about topics that are related to mental health and well-being in the legal profession. And the topic for today is quite brutally, don't become a lawyer. Now, why are we going to talk about this? Well, I've been asked, because I am not a lawyer, why on earth do I work with lawyers? And I usually get some very negative stuff coming out of that. And then I say, well, I like lawyers. It would be stupid of me to work with people I don't like. And it would be stupid of me to work with a profession that I don't respect or appreciate. And then I follow up with what is also the truth. I thought about joining the legal profession a couple of times in my life. And promptly comes back, oh, thank God you didn't. No, hang on a minute. One was, spoke to a lady at the table at a birthday party. I never met her before. We sat next to each other and talked about what we do. And this was in Denmark. So this is not just a British thing. I live in the UK. It's not just an American thing, but you are. And I've had a comment on LinkedIn, either in response to what you and I have been doing, Mike, or it was another conversation, I can't remember. It was from a UK lawyer who said that law is oversubscribed in the UK. Don't do it unless you're really passionate about law. So you being a lawyer, what are your thoughts of, are we leading youngsters into a horrible thing, or is this blown out of all proportion?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm equipped to give career advice to youngsters, but I will say that this trope of, oh, don't be a lawyer, lawyers are terrible, it's a terrible career. That's something I've certainly heard as a lawyer. I come from actually a family of lawyers, and I thought that it was kind of cultural, like a US thing. I feel like in the US, there's a very negative association with lawyers. And I mean, lawyers are really broad. Lawyers do lots of different things, whether it's working in law firms or working for civil rights or working in immigration law or with nonprofits or in government. But you do get that trope of like lawyers are these bad people and they're ambulance chasers and they're, unscrupulous and it's a tough career. And I think it's actually kind of damaging. Like in the US, it's almost like a joke and we just accept it, that really negative connotation. And I feel like that negative connotation, like it weighs down on us and on people who are lawyers. I think it sets expectations kind of all wrong. But it's interesting that to hear you share kind of similar advice, maybe not the same, but that similar kind of feeling in other countries, because my experience, I spent a couple years abroad living in Japan, and it was so interesting being there because meeting a stranger there, they say, what do you do for a living? And you say, I'm a lawyer. In the US, you usually get a lawyer joke or something like that. And in Japan, it's actually a massively respected profession. And I was really taken aback. Part of it is that there are so few bengoshi, so few lawyers, that it's very respected. And I guess in the US and other countries, there are lots of lawyers. But that cultural, that respect was so surprising to hear, right? I said, oh, I'm a lawyer. And they said, oh, wow, like amazing, and I think the way that we react to what it is that people do and what that we do has an impact. So, even though we're here talking about oftentimes, negative cultural things and trying to do better, I think that connotation is harmful.
I think it is harmful because why would you go and have such a go at one profession? And it's always the same old story, isn't it? That you give rubbish advice and you charge a fortune, and everybody is just a bad person if you're a lawyer. I mean, even Shakespeare wrote about it. So it's been something that has been going on for generations, for centuries. And yet at the same time, there are cultures, typically the South Asian cultures, but I also learned from clients that some African cultures have the same thing, that I want my son or daughter to be a lawyer or a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
That is great. I want to be able to say my son, the lawyer, or my daughter, the doctor, something along those lines.
Right.
And
It has some sort of prestige.
Prestige, exactly. And a lot of these young people go into that profession. struggle through university to become something that they had no interest in. But there's family pressure, there's cultural pressure.
Yeah, very true.
And for those reasons, you should definitely stay away. But it's easier said than done, isn't it? If you have the whole family bearing down on you with this push that you must be the shining light of the family.
Yeah.
So could it be that a lot of doctors and lawyers are out there doing average to poor job because the heart is not in it?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, especially the family pressure and the, be a doctor, be a lawyer, because the expectation is that there's prestige and there's money. It's interesting coming from a family of lawyers, but I mean, my mom was an English teacher and then became an immigration lawyer. And my dad was a physicist and became a patent lawyer, and they were kind of second careers. But it was interesting because after college, I spent a couple of years doing consulting work for Accenture, and I was trying to think, do I go to law school or not? And I wasn't really sure. I liked intellectual property law. And I do remember my family didn't pressure me, but my mom said, if you become a lawyer, there's lots of different things you can do with a legal degree. You can go into government, or you can, be an advisor to businesses. And I think that's true. That wasn't like the pressure in the way that you're talking about it, like, hey, you better become a lawyer. But I do think it's true that we should be going into the field sort of eyes wide open. And I think that means I think some people go to law school because they don't know what else to do. And then you end up here, and a few years in, you're really jaded. Or sometimes people come in and they have really lofty expectations, or they want to work in, you often hear the story of, oh, I wanted to work, in civil rights law or constitutional law, or, social interest law or nonprofit. But then they get out of law school with a lot of debt, and they start down the path of working for a big law firm. And then, momentum happens, and 20 years in, they're working for a big law firm, and they're saying, well, this is never what I wanted to do. And I think I've met a lot of people like that, who it just sort of happens. And I think when you get that, you tend to get people who aren't satisfied.
I'm just surprised to hear that. Oh, I don't know what I want to be. Oh, I'll be a lawyer. I mean, you could pick any profession, but why pick law? And if that's a background you have for going into that profession, it's going to go wrong. If I look back to when I got my A levels, which is your high school, I believe, I wanted to be a doctor. So I upped my game a little bit to get the grades to get me into law school, and I failed into medical school, and I failed the lowest entry level at one of the schools by 0.08 of whatever system we had in Denmark at the time. And that was a kick in the teeth, but it also made me realize I wanted to be a doctor. I actually had no inclination of interest in becoming one. It took 7 years to become a doctor in Denmark. It's a long time to spend in university to hate it. But I wanted the recognition and the respect that I thought I would get by being a doctor. And I felt I didn't have it in my life at the time. So I thought, solution, be a doctor. Yeah, I love all these sort of things, medical, but these days I have no interest in practicing in medicine at all. But it was the way I was thinking at the time. And people must be doing that with a law degree as well. The glory, the dollar signs, the pound signs, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's true. And then, it always strikes me that it's so difficult for people to really know what they want to do at the time that we all expect people to. Like I think about talking to high school students who are 18. I feel like my kids sort of know what they want to do. I had no idea. I think most people have no idea, and you haven't been out in the world to really understand it. I think when a lot of people think about lawyers, they may think about, LA law or litigation, when there's so many lawyers, doing corporate deals and just all sorts of different types of law. So I think that people don't necessarily have a good idea of what it really means to be a lawyer at the time we're making these decisions and these commitments for a long time to go through these difficult, long schooling and sort of a long, apprenticeship. And then you're 5 years in and you're saying, oh, well, this isn't really what I wanted, but maybe, you have a lot of debt by then. That's kind of a recipe to me for unhappiness.
You said at the beginning that you would not want to give educational advice. What I don't know whether I am either, but what I did after my A levels, my graduate from high school, I took a sabbatical. So I worked as a warehouse operative, picking furniture in a warehouse. I was a hospital cleaner. I was teacher's substitute. I did lots of different jobs because I didn't really know what I wanted to be. And I figured out that I wanted to do something academic. There was no pressure from my family that I should go down that route. They would have been quite happy if I'd chosen a trade or something like that, as long as it's something that I wanted to do. And then that's how I became a translator and interpreter, because I already was good with languages, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Copenhagen Business School. I enjoyed studying the languages. At the end of it, I found it boring working, translating computer manuals all the time. Hit enter to continue. You can only say that so many times.
Yeah.
But I think if there is one piece of advice I would give, it is follow what you're really interested in if you know that. If you don't know it, well, maybe wait a year.
Yeah.
Why do you have to jump into anything? There's plenty of time when you're 18. So if you start when you're 19, whether it's down a trade career or something else or university of some description, well, if you go straight into something because I just want the money, I really am on the same page as this UK lawyer who says, don't do it for the money, do it for the passion.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think we can do more in education to sort of show people the diversity of what legal careers can be, because I think there's a very narrow preconceived notion. And I think a lot of law firms that feed into being a law firm lawyer or being a litigator don't necessarily show the whole range of things. So I think, I think the more we know, the more you know going in about what it really is, you can identify whether it's something you're passionate about or not. And I think then we have, maybe, more satisfied, happy people. And I think, separately, the issue we talked about at the top of the hour about sort of the preconceived negative notions.
We should kill that, shouldn't we?
Yeah, let's kill that too.
So there will be loads of experiences out there. We love to hear them from all of you. So put your comments in where you can put them in, and we shall see you in another video. Take care for now.